Daniel Jones struggled in preseason.
He did.
Versus the Texans, he had 2 interceptions, and on the first play of the game, first drive, he could have had another one, but he got dropped by Derek Stingley.
Apparently, he still didn't play that. He played well, though, according to you.
After those 2 picks, I swear to God, he locked in. He got the garbage out of the way. He was horrible in the first 3 drives. No way around it. After that, he settled in and made some good throws.
So he has to throw 2 picks to settle in. Like, that's when he locks in.
But unfortunately, true. And I knew it was going to be bad, especially after watching the plays. And you mentioned that first drop pick that could have been a pick 6 from Derek Stingley too. It was a bad one. The second one, the first INT was bad, especially because he's trying to make something out of nothing. And that obviously leads to mistakes. Just kind of floats it was like a Jimmy G when Jimmy G did it against the Broncos, or I forget what team it was, but then he went down and didn't count. But in this situation, it very much counted, and he floated it perfectly for the guy to just walk in. Second INT, you need to put a little bit more air underneath it. I thought Stingley made an awesome play on the ball, but regardless, that's a throw that he needs to make 10 times out of 10. And obviously, I thought Stingley made a good play, but again, Daniel, you need to be better. Rest of the game looked good. But the question is Daniel Jones going to be the starting quarterback for the New York Giants beyond this year? And truthfully, I believe that it's primarily based off this year and how he finally performs with having a true star wide receiver. We all agree. Malik Neighbors is the best wide receiver option that he has had in his tenure with the Giants. The next best outside of Malik, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson.
Evan Ingram.
And Evan Ingram was not good when he was on the New York Giants. He went to go play with Trevor, and he remembers how to catch a ball.
Maybe just quarterback play.
Could have been.
And catching the ball, that simply does not have to do with quarterback play.
He was a Pro Bowler with Giants.
Eli Manning. And then after that, after his rookie season, he was not good.
Maybe it's the way Daniel Jones throws the ball.
It really sounds like a Daniel Jones this year.
But you look at the situation going into this year. This was the most I've seen the Giants do for Daniel Jones. And ironically, it comes in the same offseason as losing Saquon Barkley. But you bring in Devin Singletary, who was solid for being a average running back, was good in the passing game, and was pretty efficient on the ground with the Houston Texans. With the offensive line, bringing in John Runman and bringing in Illuminor. Thank you.
Raiders.
Yeah. Now it's funny because now he's being forced in a position where he has to play right tackle because Evan Neal has the ankle injury. Evan Neal's done. I'm done with him. It's one of the worst draft picks that the Giants have had, and it always happens with their offensive line outside of the Lord and Savior Andrew Thomas, who is one of the best left tackles. Let me not say most reliable because he has struggled with injury, but when he's on the field, he's at worst to me a top 3 left tackle in the game. Runyon most likely will play that left guard. Michael Schmitz wasn't great in his rookie season, but you have to hope for the best, especially as a second-round pick. I don't love this offensive line, but if it can stay healthy, hopefully it can just be average for the New York Giants and Daniel Jones. Last year when he played, he was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league. Maybe you can also allude to his pocket presence not being that great, and I don't disagree overly, but it also gets to a point where you kind of get scarred when your offensive line is so consistently shit. So with Malik Neighbors, with a slightly improved offensive line, I'm hoping that this is a successful season for Daniel Jones. And right now, he's the 16th highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. And to a majority, that is too high. And that's fair, especially with Daniel Jones getting injured last season, his best season having 22 total touchdowns, although it was awesome in the ground in the running game, wasn't as prolific as a passer. But like I mentioned, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, he finally has someone that he can throw the ball to on a consistent basis. I think given contract, it may not be the craziest thing to see Daniel Jones' contract picked up if he plays relatively well this season, especially as the 16th highest paid quarterback. But again, it's all dependent on this year. If he's bad, no way, no how. I don't see it because this is the first time they have an out, and they're not going to miss the opportunity to do that if he plays poorly again.
I think we saw, if everyone watched Hard Knocks, when Joe Shane broke the news to Brian Dable basically saying, we're keeping Daniel, he didn't seem the happiest. I'll say that. I think Brian Dable knows the limitations of
I
Daniel
did
Jones.
everything for him to get a good season.
Like, yo,
Because it really seemed like they want to go up and get Drake May. That's what the whole show made it seem like. Hard Knocks. They showed scenes of them going with Elliot Wolf. Excuse me, not Elliot Wolf, the New England's GM.
That is Elliot
It
Wolf.
is Wolf?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
my apologies. Going to see Elliot Wolf and talking trades with them, and then basically saying that we're going to stay put. They knew Drake May was going to be available. But regardless, Daniel Jones has the chance to. If the Giants win a lot of games and they make a wild card again, and they're picking at 20 instead of 5 or 6 like they were this year, then Daniel Jones' job is a lot more safe, right? Because you don't have such a high draft pick. But I'd be pretty surprised, honestly, even with how Daniel Jones plays this upcoming year, outside of like a Pro Bowl caliber season, that he'd stay with New York. I think the relationship has soured some. I think just based off of Brian Dable's just energy and just body language, doesn't seem like he's the most happy having Daniel Jones as his quarterback. And I think what he's shown over the last few years is it's just been too many mistakes, whether it's interceptions, sacks, fumbles. And of course you have that one year where you go to the playoffs, you beat Minnesota, your first playoff win in however many years, and you bring some hope back to New York. But I think between everything outside of that year, plus you add a torn ACL, and it's your first real chance, like you mentioned, Drew, to get out of the contract and start fresh. I don't know if you're just going to pay Daniel Jones $40 million outright. There's been rumors about Dak Prescott reportedly being available, and it seems like the Giants, that'd be a possible destination. It'd be funny if he went to Dallas, New York. But I would be surprised if Daniel Jones lasts beyond this year. Malik Neighbors, by far and away, his best option he's ever had. Still think the rest of the options are pretty damn shitty. The running game is going to be pretty questionable, but this is a team that I still think Brian Dable is one of the better head coaches, better offensive minds, and this defense should win them some games. Like, this is one of the better defensive lines in the NFL, so they should be able to get after the quarterback. It's just, you got to be winning games to get after the quarterback, right? Like, it's great to have a good defensive line, but if you're trailing, it's a bit harder to use that aggressiveness and those pass rushers, because you could just run the ball if you're up 2 touchdowns in the second half. So Daniel Jones, I do think his time in New York is probably coming to an end, and it's probably best for both. He moves on, Giants move on, and I think the 2025 quarterback class, there's a good chance that that's where the Giants quarterback comes from.
Before you go, Joel,
let
me ask you a question. Any names in 2025 that's moving them?
As I was
much?
saying, you shouldn't want a top 10 pick. I'm thinking next class doesn't have like a dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a decent chance that the first quarterback, it's a Kenny Pickett situation from a couple years ago where their first quarterback's going in the teens or the 20s.
Damn, Shador's a Kenny Pickett.
You have like Carson Beck and Shador, Shore, and Quinn Ewers.
What about Drew Allar? What's his
none of these guys seem or project to be like top 10 guys.
Oh, okay.
I think the guy that probably has a lot of upside is Riley Leonard from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I've
he
heard
just
that name
transferred from Duke to Notre Dame, and I like Riley Leonard a lot.
Another possible Duke quarterback in New York?
Yeah, he's not a first rounder in my opinion, unless he surprises me this year.
Somebody has to pop, right?
Yeah, somebody does. Carson Beck is the number 1 quarterback in the class right now.
He's from Clemson, right?
But
He's from Georgia. Yeah, he plays for Georgia.
Who the hell is I'm thinking? Oh, Cade Kubnick. That's what I was thinking of. I played college football too much, man.
I'd honestly be shocked if Daniel Jones was the starting quarterback. I'd be shocked if he wasn't benched. I think he's gonna get benched because next year the Giants. Yeah, I mean they really don't have a good quarterback room at all.
Drew Lock, yeah. Hurt. Also, Marshawn Lloyd looks like he's going on IR.
Damn, that's
Drew Lock is bad even if he wasn't hurt. I wouldn't put him.
He's not a good quarterback.
He's not good.
Daniel Jones,
his aura though,
has an injury guarantee.
No aura.
If Daniel Jones gets injured and he's unable to pass a physical in March, then the Giants have guaranteed Daniel Jones $23 million of his 2025 salary. If the Giants have plans of moving on from Daniel Jones after this season, and let's say they start out, they're like 3-10, and Daniel Jones isn't hurt, it makes a lot of sense to bench him so you're not on the hook for his money next year in case he does get hurt.
It's a Derek Carr situation. Very similar.
And a Russell Wilson situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that Brian Dable's reputation shouldn't be based off of how good he can make Daniel Jones. I think he was put in a near impossible situation when that's what he was tasked with. And the Mara family has a lot of ties with Daniel Jones because he reminds them about Eli Manning. So they're super loyal to him. It's unfortunate they were unable to get Drake May, because them beating the Patriots is the reason why the Patriots got that third overall pick.
We can also say it's super unfortunate, or however you put it, that they've done nothing to benefit Daniel Jones. That's kind of how I see it too, where a lot of my stance is this is the first season, at least how it's kind of how I feel, that they've done something of relevance that we kind of see and we trust. Did we trust Kenny Golladay overly to be an awesome home run addition?
He was supposed to.
I guess in the moment when you're giving 17.
But
there was even around the league, there was pause to give him that amount of money.
They traded for Darren Waller. I'm not saying that's the best move.
But the front office has been shitty.
You had to make it a playoff after
they
the Waller
drafted Jalen Hyatt. They've tried.
Yeah, for sure.
They just can't
They've
draft.
tried
because they just won a playoff game and made the playoffs with a worse team.
I feel like they were a clear regression team. They weren't going to do it again.
I guess that's fair. But Daniel Jones
won a lot of
also.
one-possession
I mean,
games
the
that year.
offensive line was terrible. Andrew Thomas was hurt for the first month, and that's the time where Daniel Jones played the most and was his worst, of course. But when you don't have Andrew Thomas, your offensive line's already horrendous. Now it's even worse when you don't have one of the best left tackles in football. There's not much that you can do. And I feel like Daniel Jones, although doesn't help himself a good amount of time, he doesn't get the benefit of doubt a lot, even though he did win a playoff game with a objectively bad offense while he had to be the quarterback and one of the two running backs.
I feel like Brian Dable in his season with Daniel Jones, when Daniel Jones had to break out 15 passing touchdowns, I think that in
800 rushing yards.
season,
He didn't have to say
800 total rushing
that
yards
was a
from
breakout.
regular
That one got
season
John.
and
That one
postseason.
got him good.
the 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He was very efficient.
How many rushing TDs? Yeah.
He had he
Eight?
had 7 rushing TDs, 22 total touchdowns, 800 rushing playoff and regular season.
The thing
You know who did that? 800?
Oh,
it's
Josh
clearly
Allen.
not a stat that
Lamar.
matters. If Daniel Jones did it too.
Kyler Murray.
Cam probably.
Again, 15 passing. I can make people laugh.
15 is kind of
800's insane.
15 passes.
Especially when your best wide receiver is step back 3, Darius Slayton. He's a wide receiver 3 being tasked to be a wide receiver 1. And I feel bad for bashing him every single time I talk about the Giants receiving core, because it's not his fault that he's being forced into a situation where he simply shouldn't be.
Those stats are like the army meme with the clown standing next to the 3 soldiers. That stat, Daniel Jones being in that company, because he's not in that company. And the way that
He's an elite rushing option at the quarterback position.
Now he's coming off an ACL.
the way that he
that
got
hurts.
his production in 2022, he had the lowest ADOT in the NFL. He had the lowest deep pass throwing rate. He didn't target down the field, even when there were avenues for him to target down the field. The reason why he took care of the ball so well was because he was completing easy passes. He was near the bottom of the league in tight window throws. So even with the lack of receivers, he wasn't throwing into crowded spaces. He was throwing into open spaces. He didn't have a high tight window rate when he threw the ball. So Daniel Jones this year, this is why I'm excited to watch the Giants, because based on the preseason, after the 2 interceptions that he threw, the Giants were airing the ball out down the field, and they were making it a point of emphasis to take advantage of Wan'Dale Robinson, of Malik Neighbors, because they have downfield targets.
It was lit.
RG3
So
up here.
this
That's crazy.
year, there's 2 things that can happen, right? One of the things is that Daniel Jones can be an excellent deep ball thrower, and the Giants offense is able to chunk off
used to be known
a
for
lot
that.
of explosive plays. Or the other thing is that he's going to throw a boatload of interceptions targeting the field, targeting down the field a lot. So I think he's going to get benched at some point, because the Giants don't want to be tied to him after this year.
I think the most exciting thing about this Giants season is going to be their defense. I think their
Facts.
defense is going to perform at a high level. Probably top 12, top 10 defense more in the back end. Unfortunately, their offense is going to have some trouble, so they may look a little bit worse than what they actually are. But they have the talent in the front 7, and I think their secondary is young. They have some excitement there. They have some youth there, so it can be a little bit better than expecting. I trust Brian Dable. I think he's one of the 5 most trusted coaches in the league. To me, I think he's amazing at what he does. He's a motivator. He's a leader of men. But in terms of just that,
He's an angry fellow, though.
The
He
emphasis.
is an angry fella. He's lost a lot of weight. Maybe
listen, I'll be angry too if I'm out there, because you're out there, your quarterback's he's just not a guy. But I
Tell you
think
what, when Rex lost all his weight, The Aura lost.
No, I know.
Coaching fell off.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I hate that for him. But to answer the question, I think this is Daniel Jones' last season in New York. You mentioned, and that's why I asked that question about the quarterbacks in the first round, because I think no matter what, the Giants have to go quarterback, right? Like they're not thinking nobody else. I don't think Dak is gonna get traded to New York. I don't think Dallas would ever do no shit like that.
He's
They rather
unrestricted
just
next season, isn't he?
he could
He
walk.
can't be
You
franchised,
could.
right? I don't think he can.
I wouldn't want to give
can't.
back that money either, because I don't think the Giants are in a position to jump up to just a Super Bowl contender yet.
But if Jerry Jones knows New York is calling, he's like, all right, let's get this wrapped up.
we think that, but he just took 2 months to pay CeeDee Lamb, so I legit don't know, and he still hasn't paid Dak, and I don't know how long he's gonna take to pay Micah.
Too.
So yeah, like God bless his soul. Jerry Jones is a legend in the game. But I think they'll have to go first. They'll have to go a quarterback in the first round. This offense is just not ready yet, and you need a new reset, a new quarterback on a nice rookie deal, so you can start sending money elsewhere. At the tight end position, back more on the offensive line. You got to start either paying dudes, bringing in some help,
or you can
another
draft
wide
good.
receiver. You can draft good, but what we've seen is they don't hit well.
And then it's Daniel Jones' fault they draft shitty.
Well, it's Daniel Jones' fault that he fumbles a lot and he keeps throwing interceptions. But
That was 3
nonetheless,
years ago.
he'll have a good year this year.
What's the stat line?
18-7.
So this is a breakout season. Ain't your
I didn't say that.
18 touchdowns.
Drew, what's your stat
You're
projection?
expecting a lot.
I mean, he got Malik Neighbors. I think he'll give him 3 more. Like Malik is OD.
I think 24 and
24 what?
13.
Like total?
24 touchdowns?
Yeah, 24
total,
and
right?
13.
Stroud had,
Can we make a
Stroud had
Please?
23 last year.
please?
Stroud's going to be one of the league leaders in touchdowns.
No, he said last year. You think Daniel could throw more than Stroud last year?
Yeah. He threw 24 his rookie season.
It was a minute ago. You just told me. I just told you about the
No,
fumble.
I
said
got
it was a
you.
minute ago.
That was also his rookie season. He fumbled unbelievable amounts. He went 24 and 12 his rookie season.
Really?
He fumbled, I think, 13 times.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible.
Bro had Carson Wentz syndrome. I get it.
Yeah, but now that he actually has Malik Neighbors, I think that the passing touchdowns will also follow.
Yeah. I'm a lot
and
higher
Total,
on.
24 total. Just over.
Yeah, 24.
Passing.
No,
Oh,
no,
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 he-
no, no,
he's
no,
adding
no.
the rushing. He's
it's-
locking
no,
it
no,
in.
Like 30 total at that
No,
point.
no, I won't say all that.
6 rushing?
Brother, he had 23 in his breakout year total.
It's going to be 24 around 24, though. Like my head is over 20 passing touchdowns.